Hiya, thanks for joining me. This is the Perfecto class, or Perfect class, for Class in the Box 5. And I kind of wanted to do something a bit different. And I started off with a large arrow in my mind. I do love a travel layout, and I think this collection kind of really helps, or you could use it for a travel theme if you wanted to. So I left this in the video, but what I've done is created a template for you instead. But I've left this in the video just so that you could see what I did, just in case you want to come up with your own dimensions for this layout or another one. But I'm going to create an arrow, and I'm kind of doing it with just a good old pencil and ruler. So the first thing I needed to do was decide the size of the arrowhead. So say if you want to do this yourself, I kind of think you need something a bit like, you could use an equilateral triangle, or an isosceles would work for the arrow. But definitely you do need some sort of kind of thing in your head for those dimensions. I did find a set square quite handy for this too, just to make sure all my lines are straight. So I just need to find I need to draw the base of the arrow, and then find the centre, and then it's just a case of joining up all the lines. So I kind of think, oh, that was it in my head, but see, my arrow just doesn't look pointy enough to me. I think it needs a larger arrowhead. So I have used rather a lot of trial and error in my case. And of course I'm doing this on the back of my page, so the fact that I'll have lines all over it isn't really a problem. So you can see it's now turning into a bit more isosceles, maybe, I don't know. And I'm just going to hand cut out my arrow. So as I mentioned, I have included a template for an arrow in your instruction booklet. And what you'll need to do is, I would cut around the arrow very loosely, just so you've got a biggish margin around the outside. So just not too fussy. And then just temporarily tack it to the back of your cardstock. So just to add a little blob of glue here and there just to keep it in place, and then you want to cut around the outside of it, so including the white template. That way you'll get the right size arrow, and it'll be a lot less, or a lot quicker than what I've done, which is a bit faffing around. So that's kind of where I had in my mind about this particular page. My arrow just happens to go with my photo, or that cardstock happens to go with my photo rather well. We'd been out to a balloon festival, and it turned out to be a scorching hot day. So we were sweltering in the heat. But it was really weird because it was all foggy and misty, misty and rainy in the morning. And it just turned out to be a scorcher. So rather than having the straight edge, I was adding this point, so this kind of a notch. And I think it just kind of softens that arrow a little bit because it's quite bold. As I say, you could adjust your arrow if you wanted to. I liked the, excuse me, the bold design. I think it was just something a bit different, that was all. But this would look fantastic on a travel layout, and if it was slightly shorter, you could really add a bit of movement to your page quite easily, and quite cheaply. So it's good for future layouts. So I'm taking the cut apart sheet, and I'm going to put aside some of those cards. So I'm not going to use the back of this one. You may want to, but so you don't necessarily have to cut all your cards out, but I just find it handy if you've got your cards ready, you can just pop those onto your page when you're ready. And I was deciding what sort of, I love tags, I like them for layering pieces, as well as using them as a tag. So you can see I used that little cute tag there from the cut apart sheet, which has kind of the open road kind of little scene in there, which is really cute. And I'm going to mount my photo onto one of the pattern papers, the small pattern papers. I love these 6x8 papers because they're kind of so handy to have for mounting your photo. Now, my photo, I think, is just under 6 inches tall. So what I decided to do afterwards is I want to turn that background into a tag. As I said, I do love a tag, and you can just thread things through the little hole, and I just think they're so cute. So I just kind of wanted to add a little bit of texture to this page. It's a really quite a simple page. So here's where I thought of, oh, let's add a few more tags. I've just used a couple of cards under my under that little scene. Now, when you're making your layout, you could actually just create your mount your photo, or cut down your photo, I should say, because I just wanted to leave a bit of space at the top. So I'm going to bodge mine a little bit. That's a technical term, by the way. So there's a window behind us, so I'm just going to trim that off, which was a bit distracting anyway. And that's just going to leave me a little gap at the top. And nothing fancy here, but I'm just going to notch off those corners, just so they're kind of balanced. I'm going to flip it over, just so it's the same angle, and then just trim the other side. So we've got an instant tag. You could be far more technical than me there, but it does the job. That's marvellous. So now I've got that hole at the top, I can add some tags and things behind the other piece. So I was going to say, if you didn't want to use, or if you wanted more than one photo, you could use 2 photos. Instead of that journal card, you could add another photo, a smaller one. But you just kind of need enough really to fit on top of your arrow. And I'm going to lay down some colour behind. So this is Squeeze Lemonade. So we've done this lots and lots of times. Just apply that to the cellophane packaging, spritz with water, and then we're going to get another piece of cellophane when I can find one. So it's a great way to reuse up the discarded bits of junk. And I'm going to aim to put that behind my photos so that you can see it a little. Now that page isn't gessoed, so when that ink goes down, it'll just be sucked up by the paper. So be sure you know where you want to put yours. Now, just for my little top tip from me, if you're not sure or you need some practice, you could either practice on another piece of cardstock, you could practice on the back, or where you know your photo's going in the middle there, so you could have a little test in the middle there if you wanted to. So as you can see, my original plan was to have all this in the middle, and in the final layout it's ended up being pushed a little bit further down, I think, because it just needed something else, and I really felt like actually I still need something else. So it's kind of, you know, hindsight's a great thing. So it's just the great thing about a class that, you know, hopefully I've done the trial and error for you. I'm just going to fiddle around with the positioning. I think my piece is a little bit too big for my photo, so I could have done with maybe a slightly smaller photo. So this is where you come in, and you need to, rather than just go on my specific measurements, you know, just take what you need from and adjust things for your own layout, or your own photos, I should say. Sorry, I was distracted. I was looking at what I was doing. So I think those have come from the 6x8 paper pad. So you do get the large version and the small version. But I was just deciding what I was going to put behind that card there. And one of the other things that happens is when we're creating these, like certainly for me, I'm conscious of the fact that, Julie needs some materials for her layouts, and of course I've got to make other layouts with it. And so what I find is I'm kind of perhaps a bit more frugal with the things that I'm using, just so that I've got enough for those other layouts. But, when you're coming to make yours, we kind of know what, I had loads of stuff left over, and I have created a bonus layout with some of those leftover pieces, and I think Julie has done the same. So, it's worth thinking, well, actually, I could have had more layers behind there because I've got plenty left over. So, please bear that in mind and, really go to town. I'm not sure I prefer that where I had it before now over the car, but it was to kind of give the impression of the open road and travel. So we'd gone to the what's it called, the Balloon Festival. I'll tell you what, that's my age. We'd gone to the Balloon Festival, and this is when we arrived at the place we were stopping at, or when we were leaving, I should say. I don't know. But so it was actually not at the festival in the end. I used that photo on another layout. So I've gone to the part where I start embellishing. So I'm just pulling out some stickers, just to put as layering pieces, and just to dress up the area a little bit. Now, in my final layout, as I say, I got to this point and thinking, I still need something, not sure what. And you can see in the final layout, I added the kind of the wreath, circle wreath behind the photo cluster. So in your with your layout, I suggest you put that in place once you've kind of figured out the big pieces like the photo and the journal cluster. If you want to, I would put the wreath down first. So just change your order slightly. It's the big arrow, and then mount your photo and your journal cluster, just so you know how much space you need for those. Lay down your ink, and then create the wreath before sticking everything down. It will just make your life a little bit easier. But you'll see in a few moments, it doesn't matter if you follow the steps that I actually took, because it did work in the end. So when you come to place your little embellishments, I always like this bit the best, because you get to play with all your little stickers and the acrylic pieces and so on. But just bear in mind, I think, you kind of want them balanced. So rather than just have things splattered all over the page, I think they always look good when they're in little clusters. So you're going to tell a little story of happy or florals or whatever. But they definitely look better in little clusters like that. So I have used one of those little little arrow pieces from Bramble Fox. You've got 4, I believe, in your kit. So whichever ones work for you, definitely interchangeable. If you need to flip your arrow and have things facing the other way, that'll be fine. I think the only problem you'll encounter is the car, because the car faces towards the right. And I feel like the arrow and the car need to face the same way. But you could, use a different sticker instead of that car. So I'm just deciding, I think I'm getting to this point and trying to work out what is it I need to add here and there. And so while I'm thinking about that, what I've done is I've stitched my arrow. So if you want to go ahead and stitch your arrow, do that before you stick everything down. It will make your life so much easier. If you don't have any stitching or a sewing machine rather, you could obviously hand stitch, or you could just use a bit of faux stitching. So I used a plate to go around my, to make the circle. So I could have actually drawn around the plate with my fine liner, but I kind of wanted it a little bit messy anyway, so it wasn't a massive problem. So I would have gone all the way around, except for my stickers were in the way. So as I mentioned, if you wanted to do this part before you put your stickers down, I would definitely think that would be a good idea. So I kind of wanted a few, because it's a very fine liner that I'm using, so it's a 0.1 probably. I've just added some squiggly bits to look like stitching, and I've done 2 or 3 different sets of lines just to make that a little bit darker, but still kind of light. Does that make sense? That sounds like an oxymoron. Darker as in a bit more bold, but still kind of fine. It's probably a better description. So I just need it. So I've got those tags at the top there. I mentioned that I just like a little bit of texture and movement at the top. So I'm just battling with that ribbon there, but essentially just threading a ribbon through. It's amazing how a little bit of texture can, or a little bit of softness can add, so much to a page. And I'm just going to use this really fine wax twine. So I really love things that are fine as well as thick things. So I think it's that contrast that really helps to make things more interesting. So some things like fat ribbon, like wide ribbons, and very fine waxed thread like I've used here. And my idea is just to enhance that movement across the page. I'm going to have this wax thread just wiggle across the page there and loop it slightly. So you might have to battle a little just to get that into place. The things we do for our art, eh? So we'll just kind of try and glue that into place as best we can. Because it's waxed, if you want to, you can kind of tease it and, make it do what you want to do. You just have to have a little bit of patience, which sometimes I just do not have. But can you see that I have looped it, and I've tried to go with the flow with the thread, but again, I think, and because it's dark, your eye's drawn to that, and it's kind of leading it across the page, which really enhances that whole kind of left to right movement. So the last thing to do really would be to add and embellish that little wreath. So you've got lots of stickers. There are the acrylic pieces, the puffy stickers, cardstock stickers. Sorry, they're a bit off the page. Didn't realise all you can see is the mess I've made on the right hand side there. I do think people must be so much more tidy than I am. And so we're going to create little clusters of these little puffy stickers around that wreath. So whatever you've got, it all goes, it's all very cute. And again, just do them in little clusters. So rather than fill the whole circle with puffy stickers, we're just doing them here and there in little clusters, and then have the odd one on its own maybe. So I put that down. I just didn't like the gap between the two of them. So again, I just think when they're overlapping and touching, I think that's when it's more successful. But anyway, it's your page, and you can just go to town with this section. But that really is the end of the layout. So if you want to do yours in the right order, just to reiterate, you can cut out your arrow and stitch it. Then cut out your photos and mount that, and your journal card. Kind of measure how much you need there, and then you can lay down the ink, add the wreath, and then stick everything down. Thanks so much. Don't forget you can ask me any questions that you may have on the forum. Take care. Bye.